Today we had forecasted some pretty steady rain throughout the day. So what that means for me is that instead of accomplishing a task outside in the garden or on the farm, I will spend this time inside completing a task where the rain does not affect me. The animals still need to be taken care of and the chores done regardless of the weather. So right now I am just assessing everybody, making sure they all have plenty of hay and water, making sure they look warm. I try to do an observation on each of the animals every day, just making note if anybody looks lethargic or unwell or isn't eating or drinking properly. And that can determine a lot when I have a sick animal. Looking back, when did I start noticing symptoms? We had twin lambs born last week. So here's one of them. The second one is in the house, I believe, sitting in our bathtub. She's inside because she wasn't looking well when she was born. She was shivering a lot and was not nursing properly. So we brought her in the house, started bottle feeding her, and she's kind of become a little bit of a house pet. So I am going to try and quickly get these animals done, get the chores all taken care of, and head back on in the house and start working on my tasks for today. We've got a butcher date set up for about 6 weeks from now to get the pigs processed. And so the next 6 weeks I'm going to focus on just getting them that last little bit of weight. So one of the things that I'll be planning for this week is a day to move their pasture to a fresh part of the woods. This will give them areas that they haven't foraged around in before, and that's something that I want to do before they head to the butcher shop. So now I am in the house and warming up a little bit, starting my diffuser. It has a citrus oil blends from doTERRA, and citrus oils are known to help be uplifting and invigorating. And so I'm getting ready to set the mood and the environment for my planning session now. The first thing that I do when I sit down to plan is pull up the weather forecast for the week ahead. I typically try to schedule 3 days to do inside activities and 2 days to do outside activities. That does not include the weekend where we work on Saturdays and then have the Sunday for the Sabbath. Now that I have a chance to look at the weather, I'm going to determine which days are going to be allocated for what. I have 5 days set aside for a particular activity. The first day is for cleaning. The second day is for running errands. The third day is for admin, office paperwork. The fourth day is planning and meal prep for the following week. And the fifth day is an anti-procrastination day. So on Mondays, I have designated for my cleaning day. I take the time between lunch, which usually ends about about 1 o'clock. Between 1 and 3 primarily is my work section during the day. On Mondays, I clean. So I will typically pick an area in the house that needs my focus. I have really tried to do the Fly Lady method, but I am struggling to be disciplined enough to follow her format. So I pretty much just take a room in my house one day a week that needs the attention. I focus on that. The other routines that I do are more daily routines, like cleaning my bathrooms and vacuuming, dusting, sweeping. Those things I try to do a little bit throughout the day, and that way I never have a massive buildup. Laundry is another thing that I do daily as well. 1 load a day. If I wash it, dry it, and put it away, it typically keeps me on top of things. Weekends are a little bit of a struggle because I do not do laundry typically on weekends. So Mondays, I have a couple loads to do. Also, the days that I do bed sheets, I'll typically have a couple more loads to do as well. But for the most part, if I keep on top of things throughout the week, it's not terribly overwhelming. So when I schedule out my Mondays, I schedule basically the room or areas of the house that I want to focus on, and I set my timer and I crank through it as quickly as I can. Put some music on. When I have a timer going and music, I have pretty good hustle. So I can typically crank out a decent amount of cleaning. My errand day is not something that I do every single week. I have it set aside that if I need to run errands that particular week, I have a day there to do that. But I find that I really only need to go to the grocery store maybe once a month. And so my errands typically end up only happening maybe every other week to every 3 weeks. So the errand day ends up becoming an additional day to get tasks done. The next day is my admin or home office day. That day, I will pay bills, I will balance my bank statements, I will do any to-dos that require, I guess, more of my paperwork, going through the mail, anything that comes into my inbox that I need to address from more of an administrative standpoint. The next day is my anti-procrastination day. And I determine whether or not the task needs to be accomplished in the house or outside of the house. Most of the time, the anti-procrastination day ends up being an outside activity such as garden work or farm work or even cleaning up around the farm. Sometimes my anti-procrastination day does involve needing to do a task inside, such as a big cleanup or decluttering or something that I wouldn't normally have to do every single week. And so this planning day gives me the opportunity to determine what task needs to be focused on that particular week. Hence why it's an anti-procrastination day. It's getting something done that I have been putting off. So that leaves the last day as my planning and meal prep day, which is today's task. Now that I've determined my weekly plan, I am starting to work on my meal plan for the week. I do plan out a breakfast, a lunch, and a dinner for 7 days a week. A lot of times we'll end up having leftovers from a meal before, and we'll use that the following meal for lunch or for dinner. So this plan is not followed 100%. However, if I do not have meals planned and I have a busy day and don't get a chance to prepare it, then we're stuck. It's 5 o'clock. We don't know what to eat, and we end up ordering carry out, which is not healthy and is extremely expensive. So plus we have freezers and pantries filled with food that we have got to eat. That's what we are doing. We're raising our food. So if I don't plan to have that prepared, then we just won't go through it. You know, the saying goes, I'm too busy growing food to make food for dinner. Here's a list of the breakfasts that I have planned out for the week. Our lunches are a bit more flexible. I typically use this time to finish up leftovers from the dinners that we've had throughout the week. Our dinners are also planned out. This is kind of the general framework in which I plan my week. And what I'm doing right now is actually writing down the details of, okay, on Saturdays when I do soup, what kind of soup do I want to have? What do I need to pull out of the freezer? Ground beef, sausages, chicken. Same thing with all of the other meals. Right now, when I plan it out, I plan the specifics so that way I can go out into the freezer once or twice a week, pull out all the meals, all the meats that I need for that week, and have a specific plan. So on Fridays, when I actually prepare the meals for the week ahead, I am taking all of that meat, taking it out of the freezer, and either putting it in crock pots or putting it in roasting pans. I'm seasoning it. I am doing all of the prep for the week ahead. So my walk-in freezer has pots and casserole dishes and crock pots filled with everything that all I have to do that following day is stick it on the ovens or on the stove, stick it in the oven, stick it in the crock pot. There is minimal work that has to be done each day. Now, one thing that we don't really do a lot in our family is serve sides. I'm pretty bad about that. My husband and I did carnivore for a couple months, and there weren't any sides. We had steak, we had eggs. So that kind of got stuck in my mindset. Just meals don't have to be elaborate. It can be a one item thing. Now, when I am planning something like roasted chicken, that I typically might do a green bean. We've got so much preserved from our garden, so I'll throw some green beans in there. I'm trying to think of other things that we've preserved. Most of the foods during the winter, it is just a one meal item. Now in the summer, it can be a little different. So we'll have corn on the cob, we'll have salads. There are a lot more add-ons and sides that we add into our summer diet, but for our winter diet, it's pretty much just the meats and, again, maybe a green bean that we have canned, or sometimes we'll have rice, sometimes we'll have a squash casserole. I've got some squash that I've canned. So it's a pretty simple, basic meal. So that's the extent to the meal planning. Next, I'm going to move on to planning our homeschooling week. I don't typically have to do much planning, but I'd like to glance at the lesson ahead and just kind of wrap my mind around what I need to have ready, how I need to prepare. The last thing I want to do is finally get all the kids together and sit there and fumble through the pages wondering what I need to get set up. So this gives me the ability to get that all situated in my mind ahead of time, so when the kids sit down, we are ready to crank it out. Math and English and reading are done individually at their own levels, and they know that they need to get a lesson done every day, and they do on their own. I will typically step in and help them as needed. And then the science and the history and Bible, those are done together as a family. Even though my oldest is in high school, I still like to incorporate her into some of our family activities just to kind of help build that unity and give us that time together. So that is what I am planning out next. A big part of my life is devoted to planning out how my household runs, juggling the kids, their education, the proper nourishment, nutrition, and the tasks that it takes to run a successful farm and household. I'm responsible for creating an environment of peace and of calm for my family. I want my home to smell good, both with essential oils and aromatherapy, and also with delicious smelling food. I want a calm environment with calm and soothing music and not a lot of noise. I want there to be beautiful flowers and to be things that stimulate the senses but in a relaxing way. I want there to be good artwork. I want there to be poetry. I want there to be scripture. I want my home to be a safe place and a refuge for my family. It can still be loud and slightly chaotic at times, but it's still calming and soothing to the soul. My goal is to create an environment that my family looks forward to coming home to. A place where they can step away from the stresses and the anxieties that this world brings on them, and a place where they can feel loved, where they can feel safe, and where they can renew their spirit.